capability and performance of the modern day Corvette traces back to this car right here. The C6 ZR1 is where Chevrolet started to evolve the Corvette into something more than just a sports car. Now, of course, this one has its issues, which is why it's here and not on some showroom floor, but that'll give us the unique opportunity to showcase the supercar components that Chevrolet incorporated into this ZR1, like the use of exotic materials such as carbon fiber. Now, Corvettes have been built out of fiberglass for generations, but switching to lightweight carbon fiber shows an emphasis on the performance gains from balancing power and weight. Now, this stuff, when it's broken, is downright dangerous. It is sharp as glass, so you want to handle it with a set of gloves, but it also gives us a chance to view the unique construction. Nowadays, I'm sure the Honda Accord and Toyota Camry have carbon fiber in them somewhere, but back in 2009, this was a huge leap forward from Chevrolet to incorporate carbon fiber into a mass-produced vehicle like the Corvette. The Z06 fenders are carbon fiber as well, and while they are different from the ZR1, some of the pieces that are under them are the same, like this inner wheel tub, which is a fiberglass component, but because it's used on more vehicles than just the ZR1, we shouldn't have nearly as much trouble sourcing a replacement. Now, replacing the fender itself is going to be a little bit more tricky because the ZR1s have the dual vent design. Because of that, there's just less of these out there. Now, another piece of painted carbon fiber on the ZR1s is the hood, and given this accident, we got extremely lucky that there doesn't appear to be any damage whatsoever on this hood, because these things are something like $3,000–$4,000 to replace, and it's not until you pop it that you realize why. They have a full carbon fiber construction, and the fact that GM left this exposed on the bottom side is just an absolutely perfect touch. Now we get into some of the exposed carbon fiber parts. Unfortunately, all that survived from the carbon fiber lip kit on the ZR1 is pieces. Both the driver and the passenger side are completely shattered. Luckily, the most signature piece of exposed carbon fiber on the ZR1 looks to have survived, aside from some adhesive residue and maybe needing a fresh coat of clear coat. The roof and halo both look to be in great shape. Now, we've had some wins and some losses on this project this far. The fact that the headlight miraculously looks like it's unscathed is definitely a W. The fact that we're missing an entire suspension corner, a much larger L. Now, the suspension corner itself being damaged isn't the end of the world. We can replace these components with ones from a Z06, although there's a lot here that's going to need to be addressed. It looks like our leaf spring is broken as well. Sway bar, the end link is broken. I don't know how much I trust the sway bar itself. I'm going to assume that this tie rod is not straight, and as I'm looking at that, you can see there's a little bit of damage to the magnesium subframe beyond that. On the Z06s and the ZR1s, the front subframes are made out of magnesium as opposed to aluminum, again, using some exotic materials to try and save as much weight as possible. And even just finding that, and as pricey of a problem as replacing the magnesium subframe is, that's still not what I'm most worried about. We are missing one very large and very expensive carbon ceramic brake rotor. Obviously, we need a caliper as well. These are more readily available and don't hurt the wallet quite as much as the actual rotor itself. But even still, the most important question that we need to answer at this juncture in the project is, do we have a healthy drivetrain? The LS9 supercharged engine is massively expensive, and not having that price tag potentially looming over our head will be a big relief. These dry sump systems have to be checked while they're running. The fact that there's a little bit of oil on the end of the dipstick there makes me think that we're probably in good shape. I went ahead and topped off our cooling system as well, given that we're not going to be in freezing temperatures anytime soon in Maryland. It got a lot of water, and I went ahead and did a temporary repair off camera. I didn't want to show this until I was at least relatively confident that it might hold. As you would imagine, there's lots of lights on the dash, but the important stuff like the oil pressure all looks absolutely fantastic. We're pulling some vacuum. We even got a bonus of some gas in there for us. Yeah, check brake fluid. We're missing an entire brake rotor, caliper, the whole thing. cooling system fix isn't working too well.
Everything sounds good though.
A huge thanks to today's video sponsor, Raycon, with the perfect gift this holiday season for anyone that you know, the Raycon Everyday Earbud Classics. They offer premium sound quality, secure fitment in your ear, and maximum comfort. All the guys here at the shop use them while we're working on cars, and if they work best for us, I'm sure they'll work best for you too. So whether you're listening to music at the gym, an audio book while you're relaxing, or your favorite podcast while you should be working, a set of Raycon Everyday Earbud Classics is the best way to do it. Awareness mode is my favorite feature. It lets you hear what's happening around you while still enjoying whatever you're listening to. The best part is they're a fraction of the cost of the big brands' poor fitting earphones, and they come with a 30-day happiness guarantee. Plus, Raycon audio products are up to 20% off this holiday season. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/Dalt for up to 20% off website wide. That's buyraycon.com/Dalt for the perfect gift this holiday season with up to 20% off website wide. So not a bad first test start besides my line leaking. We do have one other issue though, that the clutch pedal goes right to the floor. After some quick research, it appears that it is pretty common for these early cars to have master cylinder failures. One of the ways you can tell if it has the updated version from the later year cars is if it has a black reservoir, which this one obviously doesn't have, and the year range would fit that it is the early version that is prone to failure. A quick call to the parts store, and a couple hours later, we have our hands on one of the revised versions of these master cylinders. Apparently, they are fairly readily available, and the fact that we have already removed all of the things that are in our way on this corner should make this swap just comically easy. Much better. Now that this thing has a functioning clutch pedal, I want to do a little bit more than just idle test it. Dyno day for the ZR1. Figure this is the most efficient way to thoroughly test the drivetrain on this car, and because we're missing an entire suspension corner, it's pretty much the only way we can do that. But we're still going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to put in some guesses. Quick Google search says that these make 638 horsepower. Very, very specific. I'll let you each calculate driveline loss, and you guys can calculate driveline loss. I'm going to put in a guess of 580 wheel horsepower.
I think it's factory freak.
Factory freak, huh?
Mm-hmm.
My exact line, bitch.
Wow, okay.
Wow.
Ooh.
7.
He's saying it's a factory freak in the other direction.
Yeah. You got carbon on it.
Man.
Yeah, that's high, that's high. Measuring everything in jukes now.
Can somebody check his math on that real quick?
I did it up here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I see you calculating over there.
That's for something else.
Oh
yeah, for something
right.
else. So Eric's putting his guess in remotely. He's a little bit detained getting back from getting his lunch. He guessed 580. I said I already guessed 580, and in a not good move, he guessed 579 instead of guessing 581. If he guessed 581, he would have handicapped me, but he guessed 579, so he handicapped himself. Not smart, Eric.
That's your boy.
I mean,
I thought this was close.
The official board. Let's see what it does.
Damn, I missed by 1 horsepower.
Wow. That's impressive.
602. No, these cars just make good power.
Unfortunately, I think that Lee is the closest, but I'm going to need the conversion. How many jukes is 602?
3.1975, I believe. But, yeah.
Just off the top of your head?
Yeah, like I said, it's all up here. I know the juke conversion ratio.
We need like 3 more horsepower for somebody besides Lee to win, so we got to try this at least one more time. I'm rooting for you, Tim.
Thank you. So am I.
It's limited at 80. That was 80. Oh no!
603, 1 horsepower difference.
I mean, the fact that it made a little bit more.
That's very
The
interesting.
second one is like I think
You didn't burn up as much carbon. The first time it was smoke the whole time.
So let's do it one more time.
Yeah, they're running real quick right now.
Yeah.
We were thinking that because on the second pull this actually made slightly more power, even though it was a little bit heat soaked, we thought maybe a third pull with it being cleared out from carbon that it might make a little bit more, but unfortunately it looks like the results are final here. And as much as I hate to admit it, Lee is the big winner.
It's just like when we race, huh? Yeah.
Wow.
Same thing.
We had our fun. We confirmed that the drivetrain that's in this ZR1 is more than healthy, but now we need to address the elephant in the room. The frame damage down here. With what we can see, it doesn't look great at all. And I have my concerns that once we get what's left of this destroyed rocker panel and some of the interior out of the way, that we might find additional issues. Well, we made a giant mess, but we got enough out of the way that we can get a good look at this frame rail, and I'm pleased to report that it doesn't look like there's any additional damage that was hidden under that rocker panel. The frame rail itself looks pretty darn straight, and it looks like everything that we could see previously is the extent of the damage, but really the problem is that there's frame damage. Now, you never want to see this on any chassis, but under normal circumstances, any halfway decent body shop with a good frame machine could get this sorted back out. The only problem is the ZR1s are aluminum frames. One of the biggest differences between this chassis and a base model is the fact that the entire frame is aluminum, which from a performance perspective is awesome, but from a repair perspective, it's an absolute disaster. Unlike steel, aluminum has zero memory, so when it gets deformed in an accident like this, there's no way to pull it back into place like on a standard steel frame. So this entire section of frame here and this giant dent, there's no way to pull that back into place. The only way to repair it would be to cut out this section and weld back in another piece. On top of that, our lower door hinge mounts have been completely ripped out. This section here is basically supposed to look like that. But all of that, that's not even the worst of it. This right here is what scares me the most. It was hard to see until we got everything out of the way, but there is definitely a very, very large crease that is right there. We thought we got away unscathed because all the control arms broke, but whether it was the wheel or something else that impacted back in this area, this entire section of the frame is actually rotated in and up. It's a very small amount of frame damage and it's very isolated, but unfortunately, it's going to be the nail in the coffin for this ZR1 chassis. That's right. Unfortunately, we are going to have to call an audible, and we aren't going to be repairing this ZR1 chassis, but that doesn't mean that we aren't going to be rebuilding this ZR1. I've stated several times in the video already the similarities between the Z06 and the ZR1s. The aluminum chassis is one of the biggest ones. So this Le Mans Blue Z06 is the perfect chassis donor. This particular car was previously used pretty heavily for road racing and unfortunately had a engine incident, which is why it's here. We bought it blown up and went ahead and already removed the drivetrain, which makes this chassis the perfect plan B for the ZR1. Maybe most importantly, because the Le Mans Blue, one of the best colors for the wide body Corvettes, was only built in 2006 and 2007. With 2009 being the first year for the ZR1, it means that it was never produced in Le Mans Blue. That is, except for one very special ZR1 that happened to be the first to roll off the assembly line and sold for more than $1 million.
The very first customer delivered car, it will have a unique paint, right? So what's the color?
Le Mans Blue.
Le Mans Blue. It will be the only one painted in that color. $1 million. Sold $1 million, ladies and gentlemen. Sold for $1 million.
Now, there are some drawbacks. Even though this is a clean title Z06, the VIN is always going to show that it's a Z06 and not a ZR1. And because our ZR1 cluster has only 4,200 miles on it, we're going to have a mileage discrepancy on the Carfax. But I think that that is heavily outweighed by the fact that the ZR1 chassis would carry a salvage title and have frame damage, which the marketplace keyboard warriors will never let anyone forget. So the decision has been made, and if we're going to do this as correctly as possible, it means that we're going to have to take absolutely everything out of this ZR1 chassis, starting with the interior. Now, even if our Z06 interior wasn't all track spec'd out, we're looking at some pretty significant trim differences between our ZR1. The interior from the Z06 is a 2LZ package, and the package on our ZR1 is a 3ZR. Now, they do the interior packages slightly different on the ZR1s, so this is actually equivalent to a 4LZ package if this was a Z06. So essentially 2 levels above what the Le Mans Blue Z06 came with from the factory. So this 3ZR package is the highest package that Chevrolet offers for the Corvette that came in the ZR1. And we can see some very noticeable differences right off the bat. The dash is leather with contrasting stitching versus just a plain kind of plasticky vinyl. That also transitions over to the door panels where the contrast stitching and leather continues as compared to the plain plasticky vinyl on the 2LZ package. Now, fortunately, our ZR1 did come with the driver door. Even though it was removed from the car in the accident, the door panel is virtually unscathed. It looks like the only damage that we have probably happened when it was sitting at the Copart lot from water incursion because the window wasn't all the way up. Leather's not supposed to be this brittle. Fortunately, we had a high option Z06 come through the shop that has other issues with the door panel, but the armrest survived, so we'll be able to go ahead and take this off and use it on our ZR1. Our center consoles are also completely different. Again, stitching. The steering wheels on these cars are completely different. The Z06 did come with a nice, I guess, aftermarket steering wheel that has a suede recovering on it. It's completely reshaped. Looks like it was originally an OEM unit. Very nice. Maybe we'll go ahead and use this on the ZR1, but I doubt it. We'll probably just go ahead and sell that. But more importantly, we have an airbag that we can use on our ZR1 steering wheel. Now, one of our other major differences in the interior is the gauge cluster itself. And to the naked eye, they look pretty similar, aside from the insignia saying Z06 versus ZR1. But when you really start to dive in and look differently, our speedometer on the Z06 goes up to 200, and we have a battery gauge in the top right corner, where on the ZR1, the speedometer goes up to 220 miles an hour, and that battery gauge is replaced with a boost gauge. Now, luckily for us, aside from needing a good cleaning, all of the ZR1 interior pieces are in great shape, which is slightly unusual, not for the mileage. These dashes are known to shrink, so the fact that this is in good shape because we couldn't see it in the auction photos is a huge win. With both the interiors apart, we're barely a quarter of the way done, and in order to transfer all the wiring harnesses over, we need to get the drivetrain on the ZR1 out of our way. Now, if this car had steel brakes, we would definitely be skipping this step, but because it has carbon ceramics, I'm gonna go ahead and remove them so we don't risk damaging one of them while we're swapping the drivetrain. As you would expect from a 4,200-mile car, the carbon ceramics are in absolutely fantastic shape. There's no cracking, just no really wear of any kind. A little bit dirty from sitting at the Copart lot, but we want to keep these in as good a shape as possible. We already have to order one for the other corner. I don't want to spend any more money than we absolutely have to. One thing that's very different on the ZR1s is the radiator assembly. There's provisions for the heat exchanger and then the fluid tank that sits off to the side of the radiator mount. But one big difference is the fact that the radiator is all aluminum from the factory. The configuration isn't really that much different than any other Corvette. This is the Z06 radiator that comes with the plastic end tanks. The only thing that I've really found that's massively different is that there's one additional outlet on the ZR1 radiator that allows for coolant to head down towards the oil filter housing. Now, it became very obvious after removing the radiator that we were going to have to do some welding on this lower support. It's supposed to be all one piece, and as you can tell, we've got some broken welds. Luckily, I know a guy. Now, another big change that was made on the 08 and newer dry sump Corvettes is this expanded reservoir for the dry sump system. The only Corvettes that came with dry sump oiling system in 2006 and 2007 were the Z06. This was the original design, and somewhere along the way, they figured out that they needed additional capacity. So this was the revised version that they used in 2008 and on up on the Z06s, the ZR1s, and then even the manual Grand Sports that came with an LS3 dry sump version in like 2010 and 2011. The main canister itself looks pretty well the same, although they switched to a plastic top housing as opposed to this cast aluminum on the original version. I'm not really sure why, but obviously the main change is the added volume, and when you have a dry sump oiling system that's designed for more, that's never a bad thing, except when you're doing an oil change and you got to pay for it. Not ready yet. Always going to show that it is a Z06, which sounds really stupid. Wide body features that make the...
It'll roll in.
This is hard, okay? You're going to do it with that Camaro in a little bit, and then I'll heckle you.
Fernando's going to do it with that Camaro.
Oh, good point. Thanks for ruining my shot, Tim.
I didn't see that camera there.
First time on the job or something like that, apparently. Unfortunately, all that survived on the carbon fiber lift kit, carbon fiber lip kit. One take, Tim, one take. I'm pleased to report that it doesn't look like there's any additional damage. Can you tell that's a magnet?
Guessing no.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.